Forgot to unmute myself. So anyway, welcome to the stream, guys. Oh my God. The last 2 days have been absolutely horrible. So what I was saying is, thanks, Jamie. Good thing I saw that. What I was saying was, so the last couple days I've been kind of playing with a couple of new colors. I wanted to come out with a couple different colors. You guys know that we're coming out with the coral and the robin's egg. Those are absolutely for sure coming out. The third color is going to be army green. So we have those. They're all ready to go. What I wanted to do today was kind of play with the robin's egg and coral with a couple of different ways of using them. I wanted to kind of play around with adding some mica powder to them. And just kind of play with different ways of utilizing pigments in general. A lot of people just kind of order these types of like the solid colors, and obviously they work great. They're just a color. But you can add a little bit of mica if you want a little bit of pearl. You can pearl these up a little bit. It kind of depends on the ratio between how much pigment you're putting in as well as how much mica, so that you can kind of play around with those types of things. But anyway, so what I wanted to do was come out, like talk about a couple of different colors, because I want to come out with 2 more colors before I launch. And what I'm waiting on right now, like I'm pretty much ready almost to launch these things. The problem is I'm waiting for the bottles to come in. And then the other biggest problem is I need to design and get the labels printed for these things before I can start shipping them. So we got a little bit of a wait, but I wanted to kind of play with and see what you guys thought of these other 2 colors that I came up with. That was the thumbnail, was kind of like, oh, what else are we going to be playing with today? So the problem was yesterday I thought this was going to be really easy. I had a couple colors in mind, and I literally spent the entire day yesterday playing with pigments because I didn't really love the color that I was getting. So up until the last minute, I was mixing pigments. So anyway, so what I was saying though is I'm pretty excited. I was talking about bottles when I was muted, and so if you guys are familiar with the Divine pigments, and I'm not knocking them or anything like that, but if you're familiar with their bottles, they're pretty hard. Like they don't squeeze too easily, and I don't like that. So I was searching for the softer bottles, and if you're familiar, the Alumilite bottles are softer and they squeeze better. And for me, it just seems like you're going to be able to get more out of it. It's just easy to work with. So I'm pretty excited. The bottles that I got, I found a reasonably decent price on squeezable bottles. So I'm very excited about that. And what we're going to do is we're going to come out with the 1 ounce version of these and 2 ounce version. I also ordered 4 ounce bottles. I'm not going to really release those off the bat. I'm going to kind of let people play with these things. I'm not sure that people necessarily want to buy 4 ounces right off the bat when you're just kind of trying these out. So down the road, 4 ounce will probably be available as well. And then for tips, what we're going to be going with is these flip top caps. And I've played with these. It's going to be a little bit of an experiment. In worst case scenario, if everybody's like, these are terrible, I don't like these, then I'll switch to probably like a twist type like this. But my thing is, I don't love the twist types. I've used them for quite a while. My problem is the top of these things always has dye left on it, like no matter how much you wipe it off. And the problem is, if you shake these things and there's like a big enough, even if the cap is closed, if there's enough on top of that thing, you start shaking it, which you have to shake, all these pigments, then you splatter stuff all over the place. And so the flip tops, you still are going to have to wipe off. But my biggest thing is, one of the biggest problems though is these are easy to forget to close. And then you start shaking it and you got dye all over your shop. And I just hate that. So these, I think, are going to be a little more obvious that you got the thing open, So I'm hoping that these work pretty well. I've been using them and I like them personally. So the other option, there's really not that many options when it comes to like the cap types. Another option that's out there, and I'm just kind of sharing some of the stuff that I've gone through, but these are also out there. To be honest, these are pretty expensive. You lose the caps and they're just a mess. Like I don't love these either, that type. And then the last option is the dropper tips. And these are, I kind of like these, but the problem is for people that don't know what's going on with these tips, the problem is the tip doesn't have a big enough hole in it. Like when they, like as it is, it's got a very small hole, like made for like thin, this like water type stuff, like alcohol inks. And they drop real well with that. But the problem is you basically have to cut the tip off of this thing. Otherwise, what ends up happening is and this was a problem way back in the day, like 10 years ago, Alumilite had these things. And what you would do is you'd open your, brand new dye bottles, you'd start squeezing it, nothing would be coming out. So you squeeze harder. And the problem is this little tip thing is not integrated into the bottle. Obviously, you have to get the liquid in. And so they come out, and so you start squeezing, the top comes out, and then you dump your entire bottle of dye in the in the resin. And pretty much everyone has done that if you've been using those types. So that's the kind of a problem. I don't like those because you have to cut the top or know what's going on, and there's just way too much risk of you dumping an entire bottle in your resin, and that's no way. That's not going to happen. So like I said, hopefully you guys will have to let me know if you order when these come out, what you guys think about the flip top caps. Like I said, so far, there's no perfect cap, and these were a decent price, number one, and I've been liking them. There is one other type. There's like a flip up thing, and those are just a complete mess. They're terrible, so we're not doing that. So anyway, so I think for the first batch today, I think that coral and robin egg is gonna be like a pretty cool, maybe add a little bit of white or something like that in there. I think those are gonna be some really cool looking blanks. And then let's unveil the new colors here. Let's see here. First things first, I just wanna scroll up and see what's going on, see if anybody was asking any questions or anything like that. Mike Johnson is here, nice, I'm glad you made it. It's snowing here today, so that was kind of weird. It's been like super perfect weather. It's like 70 degrees. And then it's just like, oh, we're going to snow today. I don't think I see any questions. Yeah, lip reading stream. You're going to have a lot of fun today. Sorry. I love it when people tell me things in the comments and then I'm not even listening. All right, so let's unveil the two new colors that we want to play with. So like I said, first batch, we're going to play with the coral and the robin egg. And like I said, we're going to add a little bit of shimmer. Actually, before I even begin, I'm going to have to take a studio break for 1 second. I forgot to grab a product. I've got kind of a shimmer product that I'm playing with, so I wanted to throw that in there. You could use any mica. Actually, one other thing that I wanted to try, I wanted to try one of the galactic ghosts. The only problem is I only have gold. That's fine. We might try that in one of the colors, and then we might try this other shimmer that I've got in the other one. I wish Zach would quit shouting. Let's see here. So anyway, so let's go to the new color. So the second batch is going to be the couple that and what I'm trying to do is fill slots of, Divine Pigments is pretty good. They got a lot of different colors if you're looking for the opaques. Eye Candy's got some pigment paste now. What I'm trying to do, at least off the bat, I may come out with a full line of pigments. My biggest thing is it's pretty cool when you have the whole set and you can make your own custom colors. Like that to me is more important than just coming out with a bunch of colors. But to start, I need to kind of figure out if this is going to be worth it. Like, are people going to like the colors, the pigments and all this stuff? And before I dump a ton of money into buying a bunch of pigments, I need to see if this is going to work and go forward. But what I do really like is the idea of people being able to mix different colors, and obviously I've figured it all out so I can help people with that. That's one of the things that none of these pigment companies are really doing. They're like, oh, you can buy all these colors and mix them together. Great. How do I get any colors? That is something that having a live stream and at that point I may actually do some videos on how to do color mixing and all that kind of stuff with these pigments. But like I said, that's like way down the road if that does pan out. For now, I just want to come out with some really unique colors that are going to work well for people that are making blanks and all that stuff. Only gold. Yeah, yeah, I know. Without further ado, let's switch over to the overhead view. So, and you can't really see a whole lot, but one of the colors that I was thinking of is like a burgundy. There isn't a decent looking burgundy really too much. So I thought that would be kind of a cool one to try out. And this is great because we can kind of make some blanks with it, see what it looks like, and then get some feedback. Is this a good color? You know, do you guys like it? The other one is navy blue. And the thing is, there's lots of different navy blues out there. We're going to try this one. One thing to note is like the final, whatever the final version, if I do come out with one of these colors, it may be slightly different. And only if it is better, if I can kind of tweak the recipe to just make something better about it. So just a little bit of a quick warning about that. But navy blue and burgundy. So what do you guys think about those two colors? Like I said, the other color that is definitely coming out is army green. I already have that actually. And you guys have seen it's not exactly the same version, but I wanted to come out with like the best version for all around use. So it's a little bit different than my camo blanks, very slightly, but basically the same thing as those. And then the other color that I'm debating about coming out with is like a tractor green. I'm also thinking about, and what I want to do, I'm going to put a little poll up real quick. I don't know if I'm going to set this up the right way. I'm going to put these colors. So we got navy blue, we got burgundy. I mentioned tractor green. And another color that I'm thinking about maybe coming out with is like and I mentioned like the terracotta. I'm having issues really they look peach to me, honestly, to me. So I think it might actually be smarter to come out with like a peach possibly. So that's on my brain. I mixed up a really cool sage green. It's kind of a weird one, but it's interesting. And then the other one is a mustard yellow. I don't know if I mentioned that. So I'm just going to put some of these in the thing here. So let's see here. Navy blue. Sorry, I'm making a poll. Navy blue, burgundy. I'm gonna add an option. And I don't know. I don't know how well this poll is gonna. I don't know if you can. I have a feeling that you're only going to be able to pick one of these, I guess. So I don't know. I don't know if this is really a great poll. I wish it was like pick, two out of them. But let's just see what people say. So we're going to go mustard yellow and then tractor green. This will be interesting to see what you guys' favorite idea is. I guess we can only do 4. What else did I say? Yeah, I think that'll be good. So just, I don't know, kind of have fun with the poll. I'm not going to really worry about the results necessarily, but if everybody picks like navy blue, that'll be a good indication. I have a feeling everybody will kind of pick different stuff, but here we go. Here's a poll. So we'll just kind of see what you guys think about it. Yeah, I like the burgundy a lot. I think that's a very unique color. That's why there's a lot of use for it. It's like a regal-ish color, like that kind of very kind of like the fancier color. Navy blue is a little bit too, and I think that navy blue and burgundy is going to go well together, probably. Maybe, like I said, add another white or I don't know, something else to go in with that. So I don't know. And I think for these two, I'm not going to put anything else in them because we want to see what these colors look like. So those are going to be kind of straight up, whereas the coral and the robin's egg, we've already seen them somewhat. So I don't really have a problem. I think it'll be more useful to kind of play with them a little bit and see what else you can create out of them, kind of thing. So olive green or like an army, that is coming out, period. I literally already have the pigment. So that one is definitely on there. The three that are definite right now are coral, robin egg, and army green. Because there is really not a good army green out there that I've seen. That's the thing, you know, and I haven't seen everything, but a lot of these are things that I'm like, I wish somebody would make these. You know? Slate color. Can you describe slate? Is that like a light gray kind of thing? Let me know. Yeah, and if you guys have any ideas, either, you know, I may miss it if you put it in the comments somewhere. But if you email me or shoot me a message on Facebook or Facebook, I don't know what the deal is with Facebook. I never get any notifications from them anymore. Instagram is way better if you're going to send me a message, just to let you know. Email's the best because I look at every single one of them. But if you come up with an idea for a color that I can look into, let me know. Yeah, so I think my only hesitation, I really like the tractor green idea, but my only thing is we already have like like a green, and so I'm also trying to kind of go for like kind of spectrum. That's like mustard yellow would be kind of an interesting one. I like greens though, like a blue gray. Okay, yeah. Sometimes it gets tough with like grays and shades of different things because I can't come out with like 50,000 different colors. That's the tough part about this, and that's why, like I said, again, going back to it, in a perfect world, if I knew that I could, the sales would sustain this business, you know, the pigment side of things, I would go full in and then just create an entire line where, you know, there's like base colors, and it's much easier if you're like, oh, I just want a little bit of a kind of a bluish gray. Okay, buy these two and mix them together, you know, on your own, and you can kind of play with it, tweak it. It's really fun. Like, that's the thing. It's like, I love messing with these colors. It's pretty cool, but yeah. Google says slate is lighter in color than charcoal. Oh, of course, charcoal. I knew that one. It's tough, you know, people, the other thing is, if you ever type in like a color, like like burgundy, like when I was like coming up with burgundy, you type that into Google or whatever and look at images. I mean, literally it goes from like what I would consider like a violet all the way to like red, pretty much. It's just like, it's a whole spectrum of stuff. Burnt orange. Yeah, yeah. Tartan? I don't even know what that is. Tractor red. Yeah, a good red. There aren't as many good reds. I don't know. There are some, but you know, I don't know. So, all right. So let's. I need to take one. We need to take 1 second for me to get some of this shimmer material into like a cup or something like that. So what I'm going to do real quick, I'm going to put you guys on the splash screen while I go and get that done. So you're not just sitting here. I'm going to put you on mute real quick because it might get loud over there. But we'll get a little container of that stuff. The reason I'm being all like, I'm going to put you on hold. I may end up selling this stuff, so I'm not going to just bust out the packaging and all that stuff here. So let's see here. So we're going to do that real quick. We'll put you on splash and then mute. Okay, so we got, and I don't even know what this stuff is, honestly. Some shimmery stuff. It's kind of mica powderish. I don't know if it's technically like a true mica. We're gonna try it out. I just thought let's play with it and see what it looks like. What kilts are colored? That's fun. That's like, isn't that like? Hold on a minute. Yeah, okay. That's like plaid. I would call that plaid. But it's like, is it a specific color or could it be any? Well, eventually we may end up having all those colors. I was looking it up. That's funny. Okay, so let's switch over to the overhead view real quick. Let's start our first casting. And I'm a little bit bummed. I almost had it, but you know, Turner's Warehouse sells, and well, P-Town Subby makes those like the big brick, the 12 blank doohickeys, so, you know, silicone molds. And I'm a little bit bummed because I actually ordered a couple from Turner's Warehouse, but they're coming literally today. So I'm like, okay. But it hasn't arrived yet, obviously. So I'm pretty excited because I think that's what I'm going to be using. My issue is I would have actually bought 6-inch ones, but the problem is I'm very particular. Like I don't want 5 1/4 inch tall molds particularly. I want to be able to get a 5 1/4 inch blank out of my mold. And typically if you pour it, even if you overfill it, it's still, because of the air bubbles that are trapped in there, you pressurize it, the air bubbles leave and the volume goes down in your mold. It looks like it's shrunk or something like that, but it's actually just because the volume, you know, the air bubbles take up space, and when they're gone, you know, when you remove them with the pressure pot, the volume, the level goes down. So you're not going to get a 5 1/4 inch blank out of a 5 1/4 inch mold, and it just annoys me. But what I want is 5 1/4. So what the point is, the 12 blank molds, they are a 5 3/8 tall mold, which I don't know why you wouldn't just make them all 5 3/8, or you know, the same size. Because there's really no price difference between them. It's just I want the taller mold. So anyway, I'm going to get some 12 blank molds. That'll be fun. It's cool because you know, I'd rather pour 12 blanks at a time anyway most of the time, but it's kind of nice to be able to just kind of stick 2 6s together, and if you only want to make 6, then you know, you only got 6. But that's okay. Can't have everything, and I don't really want to make my own particularly. I may eventually someday, but I'm not really a big fan of mold making. It's not my favorite. Okay, so let's get our little book out. I don't know what's going on. I'm telling you guys, the last couple days have just been a complete, I don't know what. So today, what is this the right day? 4/26. All right, so number 1. Number 1, we're doing robin egg. And we're doing coral with effects, let's call it. So before we even begin, actually, so you know, I was telling you that you can just buy these pigments, any pigments. I'm not talking, you know, I'm not like selling my own. I thought it'd be kind of fun to kind of talk about what you can do with colorants, let's say, like liquid colorants. And on the spectrum of colorants, you've got things like this where they're called, you know, like liquid pigments, I guess. I don't think that there's really any difference between this and like a pigment paste. You know, that's what Eye Candy calls theirs, and some other people. Now, the translucent things, like from Alumilite, those are what I would call a dye. They're see-through. The color particles are even smaller. Alumilite's dyes are extremely concentrated, though. So I don't know. I think, as far as I understand, the difference between like a dye and a pigment is pigments are larger chunks of color. Dyes are like microscopic pieces of color. And they impart color, but you can see through them most of the time. All right. And then you've got like alcohol inks, and that's basically just a dye mixed with alcohol. For anybody that's interested in using alcohol inks, if you've already got Alumilite dyes, and I don't know what the ratios would be on this, but I mean, just add some Alumilite dye to alcohol and you've got an alcohol ink. That's all they are. So but at the same time, these things from like, Let's Resin, and you got whoever this company is, I can't read that, Ranger, alcohol inks. The nice thing is they've already got colors, so you don't have to mix your own colors. And in some cases, like pinks, you're not going to there's really no way to get a pink dye using Alumilite dyes. Red, the only way to lighten it is to put white in there, and that the whites are all opaque, so that's not going to work for alcohol inks. So in those cases, certain like really light shades of certain colors, you're going to have to just go buy, whatever is out there. But be a little bit careful with that. You're adding alcohol into your resin. If you add enough of it, there could be issues with curing, possibly. There's definitely a maximum limit on those. So you got transparent, you got like the paste opaque type things. I'm trying to think if there's really anything else. I don't know. Most of them fall into those types of two categories. Now, one thing that you can do is you can add white to your dyes. If you have Alumilite dyes, and this is actually Alumilite, but if you've got Alumilite dyes, you can add white to them and get an opaque, like pigment, kind of similar to like the Divine Pigments and what I'm coming out with. So there's lots of different ways to kind of manipulate these things. But the other thing that a lot of people I don't think necessarily think about is you can add mica powders in with your opaque or translucent pigments, dyes and pigments. All right. So the thing is, if it's an opaque pigment, it's taking up some of that light reflectivity because it's opaque. So the light can't really transfer through it. So you're going to be, depending on how much of the opaque pigment you put in there, you're either going to have to put a lot of mica powder or, back off the opaque pigment and kind of increase the mica powder to get more pearl. So you have a kind of a range. In general, there's a limit to how much pigment on the liquid side, the liquid pigments that, there's like a maximum that you really want to be adding to your resin. Otherwise you can get curing problems. It'll kind of change the blanks a little bit, possibly. In some cases, it may completely ruin the cure if you put like way too much in. Typically, most of them you can add like up to like 5%, like by weight compared to the resin. So that's probably 5, maybe 6. I'm not sure what the upper limit is of the ones that I'm creating. I know you can at least get 6% in there on mine so far. I haven't hit an upper limit where I'm like, oh, that ruined the blanks. So most of those pastes and all those kind of things, somewhere in that general range is good. But like I said, if you're going to try and get some other effect in there, you're going to want to go on the lower end of that. So, maybe 0.5%, maybe 1%. It kind of just depends on what the color looks like. Now, one of the other things that I want to mention is with the transparent pigments, I was saying that you can add white and make them opaque. One of the cool things about the transparent Alumilite dyes is you could mix up a cup of, red dyed resin, which is like see-through, and then you could get a cup of white. And we've kind of played around with this on the stream, where if you pour those two together, there's going to be areas where the transparent red, the see-through red, is going to be in your blank. And then there's going to be areas where it's kind of like opaque-ish, and then you're going to have white. And it's because that white is going to mix in a little bit with that transparent red and give you a depth in your blanks that you wouldn't otherwise get. It would either just be totally see-through or it'd be pretty much like totally opaque. So there's lots of different things you can do. You can add mica powders, you can add glitters in with these things. Again, depending on how much pigment you put in there, that's going to dictate how much of like the glitter or whatever else you put in. But you can basically mix all this stuff together, all right? And one thing I do want to mention is, with your mica powders and things like that, there's really no upper limit on how much you can put in. You could dump the entire canister in your resin. It just, it's just going to cure into a solid block of like mica powder, right? It's basically, you're just going to be wasting it at a certain point. There's a point of, diminishing returns with mica powders. And just to kind of let you understand what the difference is. So mica powders are it's just a powder, right? That's really not going to interact with the chemistry of your resin. That's why you could dump the whole thing in there. I mean, you can also dump, we were doing experiments. You could dump cornstarch or, I don't know, cereal, things like that. Unless there's some sort of a moisture additive or like a chemical in there, you could dump all kinds of stuff in resin and it's generally going to cure. I would say oils, other types of weird chemicals, water for sure is going to cause problems. But like solid materials don't do anything. The resin's just going to kind of, it's not really any different than dumping a bunch of glitter in there. It's just little solid particles. But when it comes to these liquid pigments, the reason that you can only put so much in is because it's got some sort of a chemical liquid in it. That's the problem. As far as I understand, I'm not a total expert on this, but the only way to get a liquid pigment is you have to have some sort of a liquid that you're putting pigment into to make it, wet, basically. And I think that's what's interacting with your resin, and that's why there's like an upper limit, because you're basically adding some form of liquid, and it's like a chemical liquid of some sort. You're adding that into your resin that's another chemical, and eventually the mixture just doesn't really want to set up right. It'll interact with that chemistry. So that's the deal with these things. I just wanted to kind of do a little bit of a broad overview of like what's going on with these things, why there's upper limits on liquid pigments, what you can and can't do. And if anybody has any questions about stuff that you may, can I do this with that? Definitely ask me, and I'll try to answer it if I know. Let me scroll up real quick. Tartans are not plaid, but it is plaid. What's the difference between plaid and, I mean, the pattern is plaid. I don't know. Anyway, let's see here. Multicolored dye in one pot. Oh, I see. So you want the colors in one dye. That's not going to happen. I'm sorry. The Thunderbirds are doing an air show on your house. That's cool. Sweet. Okay, so I don't think I missed any questions. Let's get going on the casting. So I think what we're going to do, like I said, we got this like kind of shimmery thing. It looks like a mica, but it's got, I don't know, it's a little bit different than typical mica powders, as far as I know. I don't know what it is. And then we're going to use this Galactic Ghost, which kind of looks like a glittery macro pearl kind of something. I don't know. I don't know what that's made of either. It's like a big chunk mica powder maybe. And the little particles are flying all over the place. Yeah, so it kind of looks like just like a macro pearl to me. So let's go with the gold. I don't know. I wish it wasn't gold. That's not my favorite combination. I think they have different Galactic Ghost things. But we'll put that with the robin egg, and then we'll put this shimmer with the coral. And I'm just going to kind of wing it. I don't know. I don't have like answers on like how much you should add, with this stuff. I don't do it a lot. So we're just kind of experimenting to see how does it, look, how does it work out? So I got my little book here. We're going to write down number 1. And I want to say that we did 300. That was like way too much, but 300 grams for these 6 blanks. I think it was 45. 45 times 6, yeah, 270. So yeah, let's just do 300. We'll have an extra to pour out. So we'll do 300 grams. We're going to do 3 colors though. We're going to do coral, we're going to do robin egg, and we're going to do, we might throw a mica in. Oh, what about silver? What do you guys think about silver? Little Jungin in the middle of that. Do you think silver would look good with that? It's not bad. Not bad. Now another thing that you could do, so I'm putting kind of like these, like, I don't know, they're a little bit more either on the white or somewhat neutral-ish side of this. But another thing that you could do, you know, we got robin egg, which is kind of that color-ish, you know. You could pull something, a mica, that's somewhat similar, right? That's not, maybe that's not the Sagero green is not exactly the right shade. Maybe something more like this. You know, if you didn't want to change the shade, you could pull a mica powder out and add it in there to add a little bit of pearl. Now, you're not changing anything, you're not going to do anything, but if that's what you're going for, is just a little bit of pearl, then that's another way to do things. And my internet is like freaking out for some reason. Hopefully we didn't lose the stream. Pale yellow. Yeah, I think silver might be kind of fun. I'm not sure about yellow. Yeah, black would actually be good too. You're right. I do have some Ninja. Black. Yeah, I kind of like the black idea. White would be good for sure. That's kind of boring. Silver. Yeah, I kind of like that black idea. Let's do that. I wouldn't normally. That's not my first instinct, really. So let's go with black. We'll do the Ninja. It's one of my favorite blacks. All right, so we got our 3 colors. We're just going to split this in 3. We're just going to do 100. And actually, one thing that we could do actually is go. So let's do like let's kind of switch it up, because we don't necessarily need a lot of black. We could just use that as like a little bit of an accent. So let's do, I'm just looking at some different percentages here. So let's just do like 250. So for the robin egg and the coral, we're going to use up 250 grams of our total 300. Which is 125 for each one of those. And then we're left with 50 for the black. That should be plenty. So we got robin egg, and we got coral. And let's see here. So 125. So we're going to go at the lower end, I think. That's all we need. I'm going to actually try 0.5. 125 times 0.5. That's not what I want. 0.05. 0.05, 5% times 125. That's way too much. 0.05 times 0.005. 0.005 times 125. There we go. I'm going to try, we're going to start with 0.5 grams of the pigment paste. Whatever pigment. Just throwing words out. So 0.5 grams of the robin egg, and we're going to put that with, I think, the ghost. And then 0.5 grams. We're going to start there and kind of see how we feel about it. And then we're also going to add 125. Let's try like an 1/8 teaspoon. We're going to start there again. Of, let's see here. So the robin egg, we're going to put Galactic Ghost Gold. I'm just going to call it Galactic. Yeah. I'm going to put the whole thing so I know what when I come back to it. And then we're also going to use, I'm just going to call this Shimmer. I got to be honest, I don't really know what that is exactly. And then for the black, we're going to add, I'm going to go 1 drop of black dye plus an 1/8 teaspoon of Ninja. In fact, I might even, let's see, 51. I'm not even going to put any dye in there. I don't think we need to. We're going to go with 1/4 teaspoon of Ninja in the black. See how that goes. All right, so my Jackson Pollock under the mold, yep. Okay, so let's see here. We got, what do we need to do? What am I doing? Okay. Get our mixing cup, and I'm just going to get some paper cups out here. Two of these guys, 50, and I think 50 will fit in that little cup. We will find out. Okay, so we're ready. I'm going to put this stuff away. Whew. So we need 150 part A. I'm going to add a little extra because we're going to dump some out. Oh, there we go. That's plenty. 153. I may not be able to fill these exactly up to the 125 and all that stuff, but we got extra anyway. And 153. I usually put a little extra part B in. Again, don't do that with most resins. Alumilite clears slow. There's nothing wrong with it though. It's just kind of a habit I got into a while ago. So we're mixing it up. Let's see here. Swirl with the twisted rod. Yeah, we're going to swirl these guys up. I'm not... actually, we're going to try a different... let's see here. What do we got? You know what we should do? We should try out Myra's stir thing. What do you guys think about that? I've never done one of these. So I was thinking we just push it down in and then twist it, and it should really spin it around. Now, one thing, mica powders versus pigments. All right, so even these like thicker pigments, you know, like the pastes and all that stuff, most of the time you still have to watch out. Like the liquid colors typically will bleed a lot more than mica powders will. Okay, so to combat that, one thing that you can do now, I think that adding mica powder in with this stuff is actually probably going to help it not want to bleed as much. I think that might, I don't know for sure, but I would imagine that might help keep the colors from kind of tending to bleed. And it's not like they really bleed unless you just poured them immediately after you know, when the resin's super thin. Then it will just literally bleed together. So the first line of defense is you got to wait till, you know, later on in the working time. You want to wait till it starts warming up, thickening up, and that will keep your colors separated. But when it comes to mica powders, you got giant chunks of color. Like they can't really bleed together as much once the resin gets to kind of a certain thickness. So you got a lot of latitude when it comes to mica powders, and that's why I always recommend, if you are you've never resin casted before, just use mica powders to start. That way you can learn how the resin stuff works, all, you know, mixing it up and pouring it and doing all that stuff. You can really focus on that and not focus so much on, you know, keeping colors separated and all that stuff. I think it's a little bit easier. It's less messy. It's simpler, right? And you're going to get good results without having to think about much. When you start, you know, once you've done a few castings, you know, you're like, okay, I get this resin stuff. Then, you know, there's nothing hard about liquid pigments. It's just they tend to bleed more. And so you have to wait a little bit longer, typically, before you pour them together. Now, Myra's stick is going to probably move that stuff a lot. That's another thing. If you don't want it to bleed, a simple way to do it is don't mix it up. Stirring it is definitely a way to get color bleed, you know, especially if you're furiously mixing it up. So one of the nice things, so these are brand new lids. So obviously you can put your finger on top of there and shake it up. Once you start using it, you know, it's going to start kind of getting a little bit, you know, pigmenty. But like I said, I like these caps because I feel like you know that they're closed, and especially if you're the type of person that, you know, maybe grab a thing so you don't get your fingers wet, but you can just, you know that the cap is closed, right? You're not going to be shaking this thing and the lid's open, which is something you can do with those twist caps. So we're putting in 0.5 grams, so you guys can see, right? So I'm hoping that you can, is this as wide as it goes? Yeah. Hoping you can see this, but they work well. I really do like these. Whoa, I went a little too high. 0.6, that's fine, not a big deal. But what I want to do here is I want to mix this in. That should be pretty opaque. Probably, I mean, honestly, I probably could have put like a drop and it would have been a little bit more on the thinner side, or like 0.2 or 0.3. I still think we're going to be fine. Now, if I put like 5% in here, I think we'd have a tough time seeing any Galactic Ghost Gold. It would make things a lot harder to, it would mute the effect quite a bit, I think, is what I'm trying to say. 125, I don't know, we may end up with less black, but I don't really care. The black is just kind of a little bit of an accent. All right, and then we'll go with our coral. I really love the coral. Both of these colors are, you know, obviously I came out with these two first. They're pretty outstanding, I think. In personally, I really like these colors. So we're going to go with 0.1. Let's try 0.2. Oh, we went to, it's hard to sneak up on. Oh, it looks like we're around 0.2. So let's see what 0.2 looks like with the coral. These two colors are pretty, and the other thing to note, a lot of the opaque, quote unquote, the opaque pigments, they vary. Each color can vary significantly because each color pigment has different types of particles, like particle sizes. So that's actually pretty see-through. I actually don't like that. I don't want it that see-through, so we're going to go back up to 0.5. So I need to add 0.3 more. 0.4. I guess we're going with 0.6 on both of these. That's okay. That was see-through, like very see-through. So this one's a little bit more on the like see-through side. So if I wanted this totally opaque, I would want to put a lot more pigment in here with the coral. Like probably like somewhere around 2 or 3% to make sure, because I can see through this stuff on the stick. In fact, I think I'm actually going to put, I think we're going to go up to 1 gram. Because I think we're still fine on being able to get some of that kind of shimmery stuff. So I'm going to go 0.4 more. What do you guys think of this coral color though? Man, I love it. There we go. Now we're getting a little bit more. I like that a lot better. All right, and then we're going to add an 1/8 teaspoon, whatever that is. Let's see, my 1/8 teaspoon of we might add a little bit more of the Galactic Ghost than 1/8. Let's see how this, yeah, the gold is not too bad. It actually goes pretty well with this. So it's definitely, when I pull it out, you can see some chunks. Now I think we definitely need another 1/8, so we're up to 1/4. I'm going to try to make this, I'm not trying to not like make it like an over 1/8. I kind of like the effect that the gold gives this though, actually. It's kind of a, I don't know, it's interesting. So I don't know if you can see, this is more of like a, I would kind of put this in more like a glitter type of thing. It's not so much like you're going to get a pearl out of this. And because of that, we went pretty thin on the pigment, and I'm starting to look, you can kind of see through this a little bit. It is pretty opaque. It's a pretty opaque pigment to start out with, but I think that what we want to do is, I think we're going to go up to 1. So I need to add 0.4. So the problem with this is, I haven't really played around with these things. Obviously, I haven't done this before, so it's kind of we're going to have to kind of play around with this and see how I feel, basically. So we're going to go back up to like about a gram. And I can still see the particles. If you pull it out and kind of look, it's going to be muted. I mean, we're putting it into an opaque pigment, so it's not going to be like popping out at you. But we should be able to see that in the final blanks. All right, so let's go over to our shimmer now. And once again, we're going to kind of sneak up. We're going to put an 1/8 teaspoon into our coral and see how this stuff looks. This is a little bit more mica powder-ish, I would say. So this should give us kind of like a shimmer to it. It's kind of a weird one though. It's like in between, it's like a smaller particle of that kind of glittery stuff. So it's a little less pearly, I think. A little bit more kind of like a particle. And so what this stuff I'm hoping might do is provide a little bit more of like a metallic color kind of thing. So let's put a 1/4 teaspoon. We're putting 2/8. Let's go up to a 1/4 teaspoon. And it will slightly affect the color. I mean, it's maybe lightening it a tad. I don't think I want to put too much more of this stuff in necessarily. I don't know. But it definitely does have that kind of a shimmer to it now. A little bit of kind of fleck. I would say it's a little different than like a mica powder, like a true, like if I put like an orange tangerine mica powder. I mean, this just to me looks different. This is more sparkly. This is a little less sparkly. I think you're going to get more pearl from mica powder, a little bit more sparkle, kind of a metallic sheen sort of look with this shimmer, whatever stuff that I've got. All right, so we got those two. Let's get our black going here. Just pretty much whatever's left we'll just use. We got 39. We're probably getting pretty close. We don't need to wait too long. I'm probably going to wait till, so it should be about 68 in my shop right now. Fahrenheit. It's getting pretty thick, so. And then we're going to do, let's see here, it's dripping on my, of course it dripped where I don't have a silicone mat because I stuck it there, that's why. And we're going to do Ninja, so we don't need to weigh this. We're going to do a 1/4 teaspoon of Ninja. So I'll just keep my 1/8 teaspoon here and do 2 of those guys. Ninja's a good black. It's kind of on the darker side of blacks. A lot of the blacks are kind of like gray. That's why if you're going for a very, very deep black with pearl in it, I would recommend just putting dye in first a little bit and then add some mica powder to it. And again, that's another way to get that mixture of color plus shimmer or pearl or whatever, color plus effect. So that's pretty good though. Like I said, we didn't put any black in there, any dye, and that's a pretty good black, I would say. That's one of the darker ones out there. So not too bad. If you just give these bottles just a quick wipe, you don't really have a whole lot of excess. That's why, like I said, I looked around at caps all over the place, tried a bunch of different ones, and these seem to be okay. You're still gonna, there's still a little bit, there's just no way to get around some mess when you're dealing with these dyes, pigments, whatever you want to call them. But I think that those ones, those flip tops, nobody's using them. Let's give them a shot. Let's see how they go. So we're at 106. We're probably about ready. I mean, I would maybe say 110 at the most is what I would go for on this. 105 there. I mean, I think we're good. I think we can do it. Now we are going to be using this fairly aggressive stick, so maybe I'll just wait a few more minutes. I think we got plenty of. I'm not worried yet. I think once you start getting, you know, for me in my shop right now, you know, it's 68 degrees Fahrenheit. If it starts getting up to like 120. You're running out of time. Like that's pretty much, I think you're going to start running into problems where you're not going to be able to get it in the pressure pot, remove those air bubbles, and have a good time, right? But I'm easily pouring at 115, certain colors. Again, if you're just doing the you know, opaque pigments, some of them tend to be more bleedy than others anyway, so 115 at, you know, 68 to 70 degrees in your shop should be plenty. You should be fine. It's still going to be liquid. So we're approaching 110. That one's at 113. So let's just do this. We're just going to do like a one color at a time type pour. Now you may need to adjust things depending on how you're pouring it. I mean, all these things kind of go together, right? Ooh, that's going to be pretty sweet. That black, it's looking pretty good. I'm going to be very interested to see how this stir stick works. What do you guys think? You know what what would have been maybe kind of cool? I saw some of the little gold fleck particles coming out of of the I almost said the Tiffany word. I always want to just call it Tiffany blue because that's what it kind of is. But I saw those little gold flecks, and you know what would be cool is adding the Galactic Ghost to black. I think that would be pretty killer. And you could either do that, like you could mix that with like a mica, or you could mix it into like a black pigment or, you know, dye, liquid only. So this stuff is pretty thick. When you add the mica powder also, you're probably going to thicken it a little bit more. So, you know, when I said I've been pouring some blanks at like 115, well, that wasn't blanks that had pearl stuff in it, you know, mica or Galactic Ghosts or any of that stuff. So, you know, sometimes you got to kind of vary these things a little bit and do a test, see how it goes, and, you know, adjust maybe on the next one to get like the best outcomes. Now, one other thing about this spoon is it's probably going to like kind of want to overflow these things a lot more. When you're just kind of shoving a thin, pretty thin stick in, yeah, a lot of mass that I'm putting in there. I'm gonna stir 2 of these because I really have a feeling that I'm just worried that this is like just mixing this stuff up like terribly. Trying to be somewhat careful with this, but you can see the level went way down because a lot of that stuff came out on the stick. So what we're going to do is we're going to leave that. The other thing that I'm going to do is we're going to just use this stick. It's just a simple one. We should be able to see kind of like what the different effects, and I'm just going to leave the middle ones not stirred at all. It'll be kind of an interesting little effect. I can kind of turn back these samples. That'll hopefully remind me that what I did there. All right, so into the pressure pot we go. I'm actually going to wipe this up because I'm not putting it in like a cup this time. I do have a piece of HDPE in the bottom of my pot, but I'm trying to wipe my hands off here. I really like that color combo though. Who came up with the black idea? That was a good one. So after this, we're going to stop and kind of take a peek at the poll results. I want to see where that came out. All right, so kind of messed around. We may not be able to get this stuff to pour into the faux burl thing here. I don't know where we're at. Yeah, it's pretty thick. We'll see. That's another thing. If you're waiting till like a pretty high temperature, you may want to forego having a bunch of excess resin to pour into something else, and do the over pour blanks. You may want to limit it at least, because it may just be kind of really too thick for that to really work. Let's see what we got though. I think I'm sticking my fingers in it again. Very thick. I think it'll work, but pretty thick. I think I'm gonna stop there. Add a little bit of black down in there. That's pretty cool. Got a little extra there, not too bad. All right, so let's clean up our sticks here a little bit. And then we'll move on to the new colors, which I'm super excited about. So I've been kind of playing around with this stick. It's a little bit different design. It's a little bit simpler. What I typically use is this one, and it works fine. My thing is I'm not entirely certain that there's a whole lot of difference between having a bunch of bends in it and just making a straight stick, which is a lot easier to deal with, and just kind of use that. I don't know. So I'm kind of just playing around with stuff. It's kind of hard to do testing and get, I don't know, really solid like answers to some of these questions sometimes, But it is pretty interesting when you really think about, there's so many different techniques on how to pour blanks. We've done a few things where you're pouring 2 cups at a time, and I think you get some pretty cool results doing that. Varying the temperature though is such a powerful thing, because if you want kind of more interaction, more movement in there, then you would actually want to pour at a lower temperature. The thing is, there's kind of a give and take though. The lower you pour, if you're using, the like liquid pigments, and like I said, you guys have probably heard me talk about blue and yellow. When it comes to dyes or these pigments, they just bleed. Like there's almost no way around it, right? So there's certain ones that tend to bleed more, or at least just look worse, if they do kind of happen to kind of blend together a little bit. Some of them don't really matter. So, you can kind of play with that and deal with, it's like a sliding scale. What temperature? How am I going to pour it? How much stirring am I going to do? A lot of times if you pour on the lower end of the temperature, sometimes you don't really need to stir it. It kind of moves around a little bit more, especially if you're doing like a 2-cup method. You can, I think, more times than not, you can get away with not stirring at all if you really don't want to mess with it. So it's pretty interesting. Everybody's going to kind of have to come up with their own game plan, and a lot of times, sometimes it's maybe not even what the best method is. It's just the best for you, the way that you do things. All right, so what do you guys think about the coral and the robin's egg? You got to look at them a little bit. These guys, like I said, definitely, I already have the pigment ordered. They are coming out for sure, and I'll be doing a 1 ounce and a 2 ounce bottle of these guys. These aren't the exact bottles. I don't have my bottles yet. These are the caps for sure that are going to be on these bottles when they do sell, but it's going to be about the same size. This is a 1 ounce bottle, this is a 2 ounce, but the ones that I bought are a little bit different looking. More cylindrical is the only difference, but they'll be nice and squeezy. That was super important to me coming out with that. So on this next round, we're gonna go with navy blue and burgundy, and this would be a good time to use like a, maybe a silver, maybe a white, like a lighter shade. These are both fairly dark. So let's see here. I'm going to scroll up real quick and make sure that I'm not missing any questions. Robin's egg. Well, I'm glad that you like those. I really like those colors. Like I said, there's a reason why I came out with those first. They were a very simple one. And army green too. That's a color that I wish somebody would have made 10 years ago, and they just nobody ever did. So and I can give you kind of an example of what that'll look like in a blank. Let's see here. One of these has the where is it? Hold on, I'm pulling out a bunch of blanks here. Oh, actually, I know what I can do. I got a pen. So it's going to be a little darker than this one. I like this one personally. That's what I use for my camo blanks. But I thought that a slightly darker army green might be a little bit better for more uses. I really like the way that this shade of green goes with my other colors in this blank. But I think that like an army green, I don't know. I just decided it would probably be a little better to go with we're talking ever so slightly darker. I think it'll just be more useful. I think I've done tests in the camo blank and it looks fine in that too, but I personally like that lighter shade for my blanks. I thought it was more unique, is kind of more the idea with that. But I do really think that the slightly darker shade, and I talked to other people about this, it was a little bit of a consensus with different people. The board of directors, let's call them, to use the best one for the widest, variety of people. So let's see here. White would be good. Silver is always, you just can't discount silver, goes with a lot of things. Yellow wouldn't be better. Like gold even, I think probably would look pretty good. Gold and navy blue looks really good. Gold and burgundy I think does too. Yeah. I don't know, guys. What do you guys think? Let's see. Oh, so we were going to go to the poll. Let's go to the poll. So it looks like I think I'm going to end the poll so that I don't forget. So it looks like everybody likes the, oh, where'd it go? Oh, there it goes. Everybody likes the burgundy idea best. Navy blue second. We got a little bit of tractor green going and some mustard yellow. I admit mustard yellow isn't the most sexy color. You know, if I'm like, oh, what colors should I come out with? I don't think mustard yellow would be my first choice. The thing is about mustard yellow though, I think it would be a highly useful color to a lot of people. I think, you know, I'm not sure that you're like the first color that you're like, oh, I'm going to make some new blanks. Let's get some mustard yellow in there. That may not be the best use of that, but I think that using it with other things could be extremely valuable. That's why that one's kind of an interesting one. It gives you a little bit of a different range. You can get into those kind of browns. It's like it would be more like a yellow ochre, I think is the right kind of color, is what I'm kind of going for. And I think it would allow you to mix it with other things and get some pretty amazing colors that you otherwise, it would be very difficult. You'd have to mix a ton of different things together to get certain shades. And so, like I said, down the road, I'm kind of thinking a little bit more along the lines of what would be better is to get people to be able to mix their own colors and have fun with that. I don't know how popular that's going to be. That's why, like, this is kind of like a, let's see how this goes and see what, you know, do people like the colors? Am I getting, you know, picked up by enough people looking at the products? But down the road, you know, what would be ideal is to get people to make their own colors if you have like that whole palette of different colors to work with. I find it very fun. So yeah, you get oranges and, you know, there's lots of different things that you can do. And that's why I'm also trying to strategically come out with colors that I think would be an interesting thing. Now, I got to be honest, some of these, one of the things, and I'll share a little, it's not like a secret, I guess, like a tip. The more desaturated something is, like if you add a bunch of white into something, it ain't coming back. Like you can't add like certain things and get to, like, there's certain shades of color where if you've gone past a certain point with blacks or whites that you've added to them, you can't bring it back the other way. So that's one thing. The coral and the robin's egg blue, they're a little bit desaturated. So they're a little less, like, you can do a lot of stuff with them, but that, you know, they're interesting colors. I wanted those specific shades, and that's the only way to get there. But some of these other ones, you know, like I said, mustard yellow, tractor green, I think could be a really good one to start with. So there's just certain things that are kind of interesting. Now, actually, one thing that I did want to ask, we're going to do another poll real quick, because one of the things that I was thinking about doing was coming out with the black and white pigments, which the thing is, a lot of people have black and white pigments that you could use to adjust things. My thing is, the reason that I would bring white and black out, because you know, there's already black and white pigments out there. Alumilite's got a good black. I don't love their white, but Divine Pigments has a white. It works fine. And they have a black, you know, like, so like black and white are not useful. The thing is, what I would not recommend people do is pre-mix. So like if you wanted to, you know, take mustard yellow, mix it with some red, like pre-mix things, put it in a bottle, but like mix different types of liquid pigments. I don't recommend doing that and then putting it in a bottle and then putting it on the shelf. There's nothing wrong with using Divine Pigments, Alumilite dyes, and whatever, and then dumping it into a cup and moving on. Like, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. It's not going to cause any reactions. The problem is, the reason that I'm saying this is because I started with just mixing up Alumilite dyes to try and get my team color blanks ready for Alumilite clear. The problem was I'm mixing Alumilite dyes with Divine Pigments, and some of them are like reacting in the mixing cup. Like they're like foaming and doing stuff. So the problem is there's different chemicals in all these different liquid pigments, right? So I don't recommend pre-mixing, putting them in a bottle and then sticking them on a shelf if you're dealing with different brands of pigment color, the liquid ones. So that's the only reason why I would maybe come out with white and black. The other thing is you can use them to adjust your colors. So, you know, I'm only coming out with like 5 to start with. I don't know how much adjustments people need to make with these things. If you're really going to adjust them and put them in a bottle, that's the thing. But if you guys are interested in white and black off the bat, that's something I could come out with real easy. I don't know that, I really don't think it's necessary. That's why it didn't even cross my mind. But if there's a lot of people that are like, yeah, that would be really great, let me know. I think it's more useful down the road when, like I said, the vision down the road is people are, you know, mixing and messing around with like lots of different colors, coming up with their own things. That's where I think it's really more important to have those. But like I said, if all you need to do is just adjust the robin egg lighter or something, like if you've already got like a divine pigment or, you know, a Lumelite white, just add that in there now. So I don't really even think that matters, that second pole. Mustard yellow and robin egg. Yeah, that would be cool. You want to change your vote from burgundy to tractor green? Lavender. Actually, I was gonna come. So Divine they have a lavender. I was actually working on kind of like a, I don't know, what I want to call like a grape purple. And we were gonna do this on. I was like, we're not gonna start until 12:30 if I mess with this right now. So let's go to the overhead. So I was kind of playing around with a couple different shades of just purple. I don't love that. There's other colors out there that are similar to that one. It's okay. I don't know. I kind of like that. There's nothing. It's a little bit more like a blue indigo. It's a little darker, but I kind of like that one a little bit. And then this one, my problem with this one is it was a little too close to the burgundy color. So I don't know, but like I was kind of thinking like kind of like that you know, like the more blue purple. I was gonna call it like grape or something like that. But anyway, something kind of in the purple realm, possibly. All right, so what do you guys think about gold? Purple, blue, and gold. What do you guys think about that? There's also white. A little bit of accent in there. You know, white's not too bad. Another thing that you could do is like kind of go with like a lighter blue maybe, or you know, lighter shades of these colors. Silver, I think would be a good one too. I don't know if that's helping or not. I don't know. I think this gold is really going to make this kind of like a royal looking royalty. And again, we're not going to mess with any like micas or anything, any extras. We just want to see what these colors look like. I have never cast. These are brand, well, I do know the navy blue. I know what that looks like, but I haven't done the burgundy yet. It's kind of classic. Barb, how's it going? Your pen is on the way. I sent it on Friday. Yesterday, I sent it out. So it's coming. Oh, Divine does have a most. Yeah, I don't know what all they have. I think they came out with a few colors later on, possibly. I think we need to go with gold. I think gold's the way to do it. And I like so what we're going to use, let's go with this Olympic gold. It'll add that kind of the pearl in between these kind of solid colors. I think this is going to be a good one. I like this. I think these are going to be some pretty awesome blanks. And then what we're going to do is we'll go with let's just go with our original, the OG stick on this one. We're going for OG, number 2. Let's see here. Navy, burgundy, and gold. So we're doing 300 grams. We're doing, I think we can just split it in thirds, so 100 grams each. We'll do navy, and I'm going to do a good amount. So a couple things, like I said, if you're dealing with these liquid pigments, and it doesn't really matter so much which brand or anything like that, when it comes to the liquid pigments, there's a couple ways to help reduce that kind of color bleed or mixing. Number one is the temperature. That's the one that we all know. If you go to a higher temperature, it's going to be thicker. It's going to resist wanting to kind of blend together or just be, bleedy looking. The other thing about it that I've kind of actually fairly recently really found out, if you load up the amount of pigment, that will help reduce the effect of color bleed, okay? And the reason I say the effect is because a lot of these colors don't really want to bleed. They're not literally bleeding together. They're not combining. What ends up happening is they're see-through enough still, if you don't put enough in, to where there's like 2 layers. They haven't technically bled together, but there's 2 layers that the bottom layer is kind of peeking through, especially if you got one color, like one in particular. Yellows, I've found with these opaque pigments, are notoriously thin, like thin see-through. They're more on the transparent side. You got to put a lot more yellow in if you want it to be on the opaque side. And so if you've got yellow and then you've got something really dark like a red or greens that are darks, then they kind of tend to look like they're bleeding together, but what's happening is you can just see through one of the layers in that dark, and it just muddies it a little bit more. And in some cases it's just almost impossible to get away from that. That's going to happen. But what I've found is to reduce that, add more of this stuff. So what we're going to do, we're going to load this stuff up. We're putting 4% of each one of these guys in, factored against by weight of the resin, and that should really help us to minimize that. Now, the thing is, some of these are a little bit more opaque than others. Every color, every one of these pigments is kind of slightly different, and it just has to do with like the raw, like ingredients, I guess. I don't know a whole lot about it, but just based on my experience, sometimes blues are super see-through. A lot of times it really just depends on like how much of the white you've added. So if you want to also make things more opaque, if you add more white into it, that's a very opaque pigment. The thing is, it's obviously going to lighten it and also like desaturate it, pull color out. So it's tough. It's like a balancing act sometimes, but we'll just have to see how it goes. So I'm going to put, let's see here, I'm going to put a half teaspoon. That's a lot, I think, but put a half teaspoon of the Olympic Gold. And then we're going to do 4% of the navy and burgundy, which is 4 grams. So again, that percentage number, we're going to mix up 100 grams of resin for the navy and 100 grams of resin for the burgundy. So you just factor 4% against that, the total amount of resin for the specific color. So 4% of 100 is 4, and we'll be golden. So we're gonna pour these guys at, like, this time we're gonna go a little bit lower. We're gonna go at, let's say 10. Let's just do 105. Let's see how that works out. 105 degrees. Again, it's 68 degrees in my shop, and these are Fahrenheit numbers. We're gonna do just 1 cup at a time pouring. We're gonna use my regular stick. And I think that should be it. Got all of our notes. So this one should be pretty straightforward. 100 grams. Honestly, let's see. 100. I don't think that's going to be big enough. We'll go with these guys over here. It's always good to have different size cups on hand. I'm gonna get that half teaspoon of gold in one of the cups before we even start. Not like I'm gonna run out of time, but I just don't have to think about it. I kind of like putting it in the cup, I guess. It tends to stir a little bit easier. Sometimes if you dump it in after you've poured the resin in the cup, it just, the powder sits on the top, kind of blows out of the cup, and just it's kind of generally a mess. It's kind of nice to just dump it in. You don't have to think about it. You can close up your mica powder and just move on. Okay. Let's get a mixing cup. Any questions? Gold will make it. Yeah, it's going to be a pretty rich looking blank, I think. I think it's going to be like, I'm just going to call it royalty. That will be the name of the blank. All right, so 150 grams of part A. We're going to go over 150, like 5. Just to make sure. Got enough for each cup. All right. Let's give this resin a stir. Marquetta's here. How's it going? Royalty, yeah. And I've really started embracing leaving. I used to pull the you know, like I'd use a mixing cup. It would, the excess would cure in the cup overnight. And I would always, like every time I use one, I would clean it out. And I got to be honest, I've really embraced. This is why it's really useful. Like, I think it's funny. A lot of people kind of look at me like, why are you sitting through like a beginning resin casting class with some, you know, somebody else giving it? And I'm like, because they have good tips. And so, you know, when I was down in Phoenix, Jim was doing his, and I listened. I was like, okay, what do you got? And they have replays on their. I might have actually had to watch the replay to get the whole thing, but it's highly useful. Like I finally was like, okay, I'm gonna try reusing, you know, just dumping and Chad does this all the time. So I didn't have to sit through a class to do this, but sometimes the right thing, you know, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna give it a try. Leave the excess in there and just pour the resin in with the excess hardened in the cup, you know, from the last time I used it. And I'm embracing it. There are certain times where I would not want to do that. If I'm pouring a blank that has, if you're familiar with my my autistic blank with the puzzle piece glitter, it's basically clear with a bunch of like the big chunky glitter kind of things. That's a blank where I don't want to have any little particles or anything. So most of the time I actually go get a brand new cup for doing something that's totally see-through like that. But if you're putting a bunch of dye or, you know, mica powder or something in there, like, there's just really nothing that's going to transfer out of your cup that's going to be visible or cause a problem. So we need 4 grams of the burgundy. And I can't wait to show you guys I really like the color of this thing. So like I said, what I do is I just wipe these guys off. And I find that they, like I said, there's no perfect cap, but you can kind of still get your finger. The one thing you got to watch out for is grabbing it on the rocker and then shaking it. So, you're better off just shaking the bottles without as long as the cap is depressed, it's not going to come out open. And usually there shouldn't be like a big blob of stuff that's going to go shaking all over the shop. So I think that should be good enough. I don't know. Like I said, I definitely want to hear feedback on these types of caps. So far, personally, I think that they're definitely as good as the twisty ones. They each have their pluses and minuses. So what do you guys think of that burgundy? I like that color a lot. I gotta be honest. I'm digging it. I'm digging it. Okay. And then 100 grams. Okay. We'll do some navy blue. Now, this one is a little bit on the like desaturated side. There is a way to do it less desaturated, but I kind of like this. It's a little bit more like, I don't know, like a true navy blue, I think. I feel like. So we'll have to see. We'll see what the results are. How you guys feel about it. We need 4 grams. I had to think about that for a minute. So, they do get a little messy here and there. Especially if you get them messy. I don't know. Like I said, I still like these ones better than the twisties, I think. All right, so here we go. Navy blue. What do you guys think of this? I mean, that is there. I don't really think that there's a whole lot of navy blues out there. I don't know. You let me know. I haven't seen them. I don't have them. I always have to make my own. All right, so we got our gold. Let's get that rolling. It's going to be a good blank, I think. Come on. It's ridiculous. I put enough resin in here. All right, well, whatever. 99.5 will have to do. Olympic gold from P-Town is I gotta be honest, guys, this is my favorite gold. Like if you're just going for like gold, like the quintessential gold, it's very, it's on the opaque side, it behaves well, and it just turns, it just looks great. There are lots, I'm sure that, Eye Candy's got 50,000 colors, so I'm sure they've got one that matches this type of style also. But I've just really been happy with this from P-Town. Fred really picked excellent colors. When they came out with their line, I mean, the Carolina blue is interesting, awesome. Sapphire blue is an excellent dark blue. The canary yellow is one of the best yellows that's just like a straight up yellow. I've never seen anything like that before. Possibly Tampopo yellow might be similar to that, but I think canary is still just more right there, right? Hot chocolate, excellent. Camo green's an excellent green. I usually try to kind of darken that a little bit, but they're turquoise. Everybody loves that. The snow white is one of my favorites. Ultraviolet is awesome. Royal purple's the great purple. Mint green. I mean, I can go on. Spring green, like they picked the best colors that, not more than you need or any, like just the perfect kind of mix. I love it. Very happy when they came out with theirs. So what do you guys think about this color mixture? What do you think of that? Yeah, it is kind of Notre Dame blue. A little bit. It's like I said, navy blue. Magic juice. Yeah. Huh. Well, let's see. I could probably just sell extra caps. Pretty sure they'll fit. So extra caps may be available. That's a really smart idea because I don't like those caps on the on the magic juice bottles either. Like they're good. Like it's like a love-hate relationship. Like they seem like they would be really great, the twisty caps, but they're just so messy. I mean, it's ridiculous. Like they're just, I wish they were better, you know? And it's just my biggest, what am I doing? A full sheet. My biggest problem is there's just been too many times where I go to shake it and I forgot to twist it closed and I got dye all over my shop and it just infuriates me. And in some cases, I don't even know until like the next day when I'm sticking my hands and stuff and then it's all over my clothes, you know. So I don't know. I'm hoping that these little flippy disc caps are better, or I don't know. Like I said, I really don't think that there's a perfect answer. That's kind of the problem when it comes to caps. I looked at every single one and none of them are perfect. Some of them are better than others. And then all of them have a drawback or two. So we're going to pour at 105. Is that what I said? 105. So on the future streams, I'm pretty excited. Like I said, I'm getting the 12 blank mold from Turner's Warehouse. Well, it's a P-Town subby, but I bought it from Turner's. And so that's what we're going to be making. And going forward, I think that's probably what I'm going to use for my team color blanks when I switch over to the round versions. It'll save a little bit. I don't think that there's really any advantage. The ones that I make right now, and I'm probably not going to change these for all the rest of our artisan blanks. You know, all the round blanks that I make right now, like the root beer and you know abalone. That's probably not changing, at least for the foreseeable future. But for the team color blanks, I just don't think that there's an advantage to a 5.5 inch blank versus a 5 1/4. And realistically, down the road, I do want to switch even the other, you know, standard length ones to 5 1/4. I have to change all my pictures on my website though, which I'm not looking forward to. But you can fit them in a small flat rate box, standing up. If you're shipping a bunch of blanks out, it just makes way more sense. I should have thought about that when I was coming up with them. I think if they were 6 inches and then cutting them down to 5 1/4, like you're losing a lot of blank. But 5.5 versus 5 1/4, I just can't imagine anybody really complaining about that. Or at least not enough people. I don't think there's an advantage to 5.5 versus 5 1/4, really. Let me know if you guys, I mean, there, you know, maybe you could get like three, the bullet gun, like the super short blanks or something like that, maybe. But for the most part, you're only going to get a 2-piece blank or a couple of 1-piece blanks anyway. And it's still plenty long enough for for doing use 2 of them to make a kitless pen. So, I don't know. This one's heating up a little bit faster than the other 2. That's another thing to kind of note. What I've found is the red pigments tend to heat up faster in the cup than probably most of the other ones, like all the other ones. So just be kind of aware of that. If you're trying to time things, sometimes, you know, you might, this is the way that I deal with it. I've got a toaster oven next to me. I leave it on. And, you know, if these two are heating up slower, you can put these on the toaster oven, you know, while this one's heating not on the toaster oven. That may help balance your temperatures out in the cups. I don't really find that it's that big of a deal for mica powders, but like I said, if you're really shooting to like minimize color bleed and all that kind of, you know, different stuff, it does kind of help to have the same temperature and thickness for all of them sometimes. All right, so we're at 105 with this one. I think I'm going to look and see what temperature this is at. That's 101.5. So it's, you know, pretty significant. I mean, we're talking like 3 degrees. This one's only at 98. But I don't really want this red to get super thick. So I think 102, 103, that's fine. And we're not going to get any real bleed with the other one. So let's pour these guys. Let's get these things out of the way real quick. Let's go ahead and pour. One of the other reasons why, you know, I mentioned that I'm switching to the slightly shorter molds for the team color blanks. One of the other reasons is to help minimize color bleed, because if you're pouring, and I'm probably not going to offer kitless length in the team color blanks, because the gravity is probably, it's much more likely if you're dumping something 9 inches tall, the two colors kind of splashing together is probably going to cause more color bleed, right, from a higher distance. So if you're looking to totally minimize color bleed with whatever dyes or pigments or whatever you're using, to be honest, the best way to totally minimize it is probably to get block molds and pour it that way. I'm just tired of cutting blocks up. And there's a lot of advantages to, you know, using round blanks, right? But if that's something that you really want, then square, you know, pouring the blocks is probably going to be the answer that you're looking for. Because you can do a lot to minimize how much, you know, you're only pouring it 1 inch deep. So gravity is on your side, or not against you at least. And there's a lot of techniques to really minimize the color bleed, pouring into a block like that. All right. Now, having said all that about color bleed, I don't think that it's going to be a massive problem for most people. You know, if you're pouring vertically and all that stuff. I'm just saying, if it's like of the utmost importance to you, then you probably are best off going with like a block mold. Pouring, definitely if you're looking for that kind of thing, check out Jim Goodow's casting thing on Turner's Warehouse. His what do you call it? Beginner casting thing live. He has some pretty good techniques. Lots of different people have different techniques that they use for making like the color swirl blanks and block molds. I usually just kind of dump each color similar to how I do these vertical ones. I don't do anything super special necessarily. And it works fine. Jim's got a pretty unique way of doing it, and then there's other people that just kind of really take it to kind of another level almost with stuff that you can find on Instagram. I can't think of like a good example of somebody. I have seen some people do things certain ways that are kind of next level, pretty cool. There we go. Oh yeah. Definitely digging these colors. All right, so we got a little bit of overpour going. Oh, and speaking of overpours, I've got almost three. I've got 2 boxes of the those faux burls ready to go. They're live up in the website. 2 boxes are ready. I got one more that's pretty much like after this one's done. I think I might have a third in inventory. So if anybody wants faux burls, there's a lot of like the kind of team colors. You can actually get a little bit of a preview of some of my upcoming team colors if you want to look at those. They're pretty cheap. $10. You get a box of 10 of those things, and then you can recast however you want, but the little burl itself is ready to go. And all you do is you drop it in a 1.5-inch PVC pipe. Little clear resin. That's actually, for the people that are getting into casting, that's a pretty good project also. Not a lot of moving parts. Mold, 1.5-inch PVC pipe. Doesn't get cheaper than that, I don't think. And you could probably even use something, I'm trying to think if there's anything even cheaper that you might even have on hand for that. But 1.5-inch PVC pipes are cheap. You can get them at the Home Depot or whatever stores by you. Turner's Warehouse carries both the pipe and they have the plugs. That's the thing that you really want, is those plugs. In a pinch, you could tape it. The problem is those leak pretty easily if you're just using like a packing tape on the bottom of them. It's doable, but you got to do a really good job of taping it up and doing all that stuff. And is it worth it? You can just buy some silicone plugs and not even think about it, right? So I think I'd do that. Just go to the Turner's Warehouse ones. They work the best. They're like these. They fit perfectly. They even give you a little center knobby thing, like an indentation on the blank, which is kind of cool. I don't even think they meant to do that for that specific reason, but it gives you a center point on your blank already, so that's kind of cool. So let's see. Let's scroll up. Make sure. I did see one question, but I just wanted to go up higher. Make sure that I'm not looking for a really good turquoise. Well, to be honest, Robin Egg is pretty close to turquoise also. Maybe a little bit on the lighter side. I understand that, but turquoise is good. I do have a really good turquoise that I'm going to be, man, I'll tell you what, guys. So I'm working on, so Turner's Warehouse has the Phoenix team colors, and I actually kind of, in the past, some of them are unique color combinations that you can't even get on my website, specifically mixed for the teams in Phoenix. I kind of doubled down on that a little bit, so I came up with new ones for the round versions that I'm coming out with. The Diamondbacks blank, I'm telling you, like even if the Diamond, I don't even know what the Diamondbacks are. That blank is one of my favorites. It's a turquoise, red, and black, and it is just, I love that one. So even if you're not a Diamondbacks fan or whatever, I'm going to show people that one. You're probably going to go there. So I think there's also right now, teal blue. Are you talking like the rocks, turquoise, like similar to Robin Egg, but like a little bit slightly different? I'm trying to think if anybody has one of those. Like I said, Robin Egg is really close to that, but it is a little bit on the lighter side, maybe a little bit more green. So Kev's asking, do you do messy dump pours? I never really, I've done them. I don't find them to be that exciting. I prefer like swirling, creating swirls when I'm doing block molds. They're fun, but I think they're just kind of a parlor trick. I don't know. What I do like is, you know, Jake's little cone thing. Like, that's cool. I like that a lot better than like the, what do you call them? It's not messy pour. I can't think of the word. What do we used to call those? Where you like put the mold on the cup. You'd like dump all the colors together. A dirty pour, I guess. I don't know. You'd have put all the, you know, let's just say this is a bigger cup, but you'd pour all your colors in one cup, put the mold on it, flip it over, and it's holding it, and then you just pull it and pop it. And it's interesting, but they all just kind of like, they're not. I just don't find the blanks to be super amazing. Dirty pour. I don't think we called it a dirty pour. We called it flip cup pour. I haven't used it for a while, but it's okay. I wasn't super thrilled with them. I think there's way better techniques that you can use personally, or make them look a little bit better. I would rather just kind of like in contrast to that, like Jim's way of doing it. So what the way that he does it. So just to, if anybody cares, the way that I would usually do it is I would have my cups, and it's similar to like what I do. I dump a little bit, dump a little bit more, and I would just kind of dump it around, right? Like I'm trying to kind of create like waves in there, all right? And then I would even take a little stir stick and just kind of move it around. So that's how I would do it. But the way that some of these other people do it is, and it takes a little bit more practice. It's a little bit more technique focused. You just kind of shake the cup a little bit, and what you're trying to do is actually like put down layers, right? And you can get some really tight swirls doing that, and it's kind of cool, and you can really minimize the color bleed. And then usually they'll come back and use a stir stick. Like, frankly, I think that the blanks that you get doing that are like way better than just making a blob of crazy. It's fun to do every once in a while, you know, but I think they call it flip cup. That's what we used to call it. Not my favorite thing, personally. 2 5 and 1/2 blanks for kitless. 2 5 and 1/2. Yeah, but you don't really need to. I mean, like, because for like the kitless blanks, they're only 8.5, and you can easily get. I mean, it depends on what you're trying to do, but you can get a cap, a body, and a section out of an 8.5-inch blank. So if you got two 10.25s, you should be able to get, you know, a section out of that too. Basically, though, what I was saying is the difference between two 5.25s and two 5.5s is not changing anything, really. You know, I don't think. Let me know if I'm missing the big picture, though. Oh, just a normal dirty pour. Yeah, sometimes. We did a lot of experiments with that. Well, we did them vertically. I didn't do a lot of experiments pouring into a block mold. Perhaps you could get a little bit different, because you are doing something a little bit differently. That's kind of cool. It depends on what you're doing, though. And a lot of times, I kind of mentioned it, you know, you can utilize the fact, like with transparent colors, mixing with white, you can get some really interesting things if you dump a transparent into a cup of white. So in that case, you can get some really interesting results. So it just depends on what you're trying to do. Dirty pours, whether they're just like a couple of the colors or like, you know, I think what I would have done more often would be to mix 2 colors and 2 colors, or maybe like if I had 6 colors and you're mixing 2 And so in the end, you basically only have 3 cups. Like that would be something that I would do a lot more often than just like a dirty pour. But yeah, I've done some dirty pours. They're fun. Like I said, the flip cup thing, I was like everybody loved seeing it. Like it was like a parlor trick though. Like the blanks weren't they weren't bad. I'm not saying they were bad. You didn't come out with like terrible looking blanks. It was actually quite amazing how you got this random craziness going on. But I would rather have more control personally, and like add, swirls and stuff in there. You can manipulate the resin. It's hard to really get exactly what you want when you're messing around with like, liquid, but you can get some swirls and some interesting patterns and things in there that you've created. Whereas that flip cup thing was just like, I don't know what's going to happen. It's crazy. So anyway, guys, so I hope you enjoyed that. Like I said, I think I'm going to I don't know. So, we explored 2 different colors that I'm thinking about possibly bringing out. Now, one of the reasons what I'm thinking about doing is going with 5 colors for the initial launch. And I told you that one of the last things that I need to do to get these things ready to be, sold, like the pigments, is labels. Well, the other problem with labels is the more that you buy, the cheaper they are per label. And I don't want to be spending 50 cents a label on something. So it actually makes more sense to come out with a couple more colors, so I can buy more labels anyway. So probably going to do 2 more. I don't know, guys. I'm really thinking this burgundy might be definitely on the list. And I do really like this navy blue too. So we'll have to kind of see. The other, like I said, the other options that are in my head, tractor green, I'm on the fence with that as like an initial launch one. And, well, peach was on the list, and then maybe like a purple, like a blue indigo kind of. I really think that navy blue is probably going to be more useful to people than most of those other ones in general. Tractor green would be up there as well though. So we'll have to kind of see. We'll have to see. Blanks with lines, stripes. Yeah, if you're just doing like layered blanks like that, you can do it pouring 1 layer at a time. It's a pain. Gotta be honest. You can do it. And I do some of them, like, I'm trying to think. Actually, I don't do any blanks like that anymore. One thing I would recommend, if you're trying to do that type of thing, one suggestion would be not to use Alumilite Clear Slow, because you got to pour really thin layers every time. That's a time where go and either get, well, if you really want to get something that's very quick, Alumilite White works. I don't recommend that. But instead of the slow version of clear, just the Alumilite Clear. Okay, so, and I want to make sure that you guys understand, I'm not talking Amazing Clear Cast or the, anything. It's called Alumilite Clear, okay? And if you have to ask, like if you want to make sure it's the urethane resin, okay? Because I don't think that Alumilite sells, I don't think they have any other urethane based besides Clear and Clear Slow. So you want the urethane based Alumilite Clear. That has a 5 to 7 minute working time, and you can, like in the pressure pot time would be like 45 minutes, maybe an hour, something like that. But you should be able to turn over your pores pretty quick. You may not even need to, it's best to pressurize it, but you may not even need to do that necessarily. If you can really stir slowly for each pour, you should be able to get layers going and not maybe forego the pressure pot. There might be some bubbles in there. But that's a good way to do it if you want to do that. But like I said, it's just clear slow. Like you'd have to like leave the, it doesn't have to be like fully cured. Like you don't have to wait necessarily till, it could still be soft, but it needs to be hard enough. But when you're talking about layers that are super thin like that, rather than like even pen blanks are pretty soft, like these round ones, after just like 4 hours. Like they're still pretty soft, if you know, unless it's like 85 degrees in your shop or something like that. 4 hours, they're still pretty soft. Like a super thin layer with clear slow, you're gonna end up with like hazing issues, that kind of white stuff in it. So that's where I would just go and get the regular clear version. That's it's the same resin, it's just a faster working time. That would be the best bet. So anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed that. I don't think I have any other news or things going on. We're still waiting. It's going to be it's going to be a little while before we get the pigments going, but off the bat, I'm going to have them on my website, and excuse me, Turner's Warehouse is going to be carrying them. So whichever colors I come out with, that's the two places that they'll be available right away. And I think that's about it, guys. So I can't wait to see how these things turn out. Next week, we're going to, I don't know what we're going to do. I might end up, we might just turn two like Sierra blanks, Sierra, you know, single blank pens. But what I'm going to do with these guys, the first ones that we did, is we have like 3 different versions in that mold. So I want to turn a couple examples back so we can see the one with no stirring. We can see one with the kind of straight stick, and then we can see one with that big paddle stick from Myra. So that'll be kind of cool. And then we'll turn one of these royal blanks up, and it should be pretty fun. So anyway, guys, thanks for joining the fun today. I hope you have a great rest of the evening, and I'll see you guys next week.